Welcome you to the deep dive. Today we're plunging into a topic that's, well, it's everywhere. Artificial intelligence. It's not just headlines, it's really reshaping our work, our policies, even how we read things like fonts. So our mission today is to cut through all that noise. We want to pull out the most important nuggets of knowledge from, honestly, a fascinating stack of sources. They cover AI's impact on, well, everything from federal regulation, professional networking like LinkedIn, and yeah, even the fonts we see every single day.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is just how fast the landscape is shifting.
Mm.
I mean, it presents these incredible opportunities, but also significant challenges. We'll explore the different viewpoints, the disagreements, and some of the surprising insights that are kind of tucked away in the details.
Okay, let's unpack this, and maybe to really get a feel for that rapid shift, let's start with the high stakes world of AI policy. There's been a recent development in the Senate.
Yeah, absolutely. So from what we've gathered, there's a pretty significant Republican effort happening. They're looking to establish a moratorium, basically a pause, on state-level AI regulation. This proposal, reportedly rewritten by Senate Commerce Chair Ted Cruz, it aims to withhold federal broadband funding. Right, broadband funding. Exactly, from states that try to enforce their own AI regulations. And this will be for the next 10 years.
10 years. Wow. And there's a key procedural detail here, isn't there? Something about the Byrd rule.
That's right. The Senate parliamentarian ruled this provision is not subject to the Byrd rule. And for anyone not familiar, the Byrd rule is basically a Senate procedure. It's designed to stop unrelated policy stuff from getting tacked onto budget bills.
Okay.
So this ruling means the AI moratorium could be included in what Republicans are calling their One Big Beautiful Bill, which is a legislative vehicle that could pass with just a simple majority. So it essentially bypasses the need for, overcoming a filibuster or getting Democratic support.
Right.
Yeah.
So potentially a big deal for how AI gets regulated nationwide.
A very big deal.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's a universally popular idea, not even within the Republican Party. We're seeing some really diverse views pop up. For instance, Republican Senator Marsha Blackburn from Tennessee, she expressed concern. She said, we do not need a moratorium that would prohibit our states from stepping up and protecting citizens in their state.
Okay, so pushback there on states' rights, it sounds like.
Exactly. And from the House side, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, she declared herself adamantly opposed to it, called it a violation of state rights, and basically said it needs to be stripped out. But then on the other hand, you have House Speaker Mike Johnson defending it. He noted President Trump's support and argued we have to be careful not to have 50 different states regulating AI because it has national security implications, right?
So that's the tension. States wanting control versus a federal argument for uniformity, especially with national security implications. Given this federal push, what does it actually mean for states that are already, taking action on AI?
Well, that's a major concern. Americans for Responsible Innovation, they're an advocacy group pushing for AI regulation. They've warned about this. They said the proposal's broad language could potentially sweep away a wide range of public interest state legislation, basically wiping out existing or planned state rules on AI and other algorithms.
Without offering any federal rules to replace them.
Precisely. Creating what they called a regulatory vacuum across a whole bunch of tech policy areas. It points to a real worry about gaps in protection if this goes through.
And we know states are moving, right? Several are already acting.
Oh, definitely. Look at California. Governor Newsom vetoed a big AI safety bill last year, but he did sign some less controversial regulations, things focused on privacy and deepfakes. New York has an AI safety bill just waiting for Governor Hochul's signature.
Yeah.
And Utah, they've already passed their own rules specifically about AI transparency.
So they're not waiting.
No.
Yeah.
And the crucial insight here, I think, is that AI doesn't really respect borders, right? It inherently creates this clash. You've got the federal government wanting uniform control, maybe for efficiency or national security reasons, but then you have states feeling this urgent need to protect their own citizens locally and also wanting the freedom to innovate with their own regulations.
It's a dynamic tension, as you said.
Yeah, and it's probably going to get more intense as AI develops unless we see some kind of clear, cohesive federal strategy that actually, acknowledges the state's role. Otherwise, we're looking at a really complex, messy patchwork of rules.
Okay, let's pivot now. From the legislative chambers, let's move into the professional sphere. We hear so much about AI transforming work, but sometimes the reality on the ground is a bit more surprising.
Yeah, this is interesting. The sources reveal a fascinating observation from LinkedIn's CEO, Ryan Roslansky. He mentioned that their AI-generated suggestions, the ones to help users polish their LinkedIn posts, they're actually not as popular as I thought it would be, quite
Oh,
frankly.
huh. That is interesting. You'd think people would jump at that, right? An easy way to make their professional profile look better.
You would think. But Roslansky explained the barrier is much higher for LinkedIn posts. Why? Because in his words, this is your resume online.
Ah, okay. The stakes are higher.
Exactly. He said users face real backlash if their content comes across as too obviously generated by AI, and that backlash could seriously impact their ability to create economic opportunities.
So it's not like getting called out on, say, X or TikTok. This is tied directly to your career prospects.
Precisely. The professional identity aspect makes people much more cautious. But here's the contrast. The perceived lack of uptake for the post-polishing feature. It stands in stark contrast to other AI trends they were seeing on the platform.
Okay, like what?
Well, Roslansky noted a huge increase in AI adoption within the job market itself, like a 6x increase in jobs requiring AI-related skills just over the past year.
6 times, wow.
Yeah, and maybe even more striking, a 20x increase in users actually adding AI skills to their profiles.
20 times. So people want the skills and employers want the skills. They just don't want AI writing their personal posts for them, maybe.
Seems like it. And there's this relatable little detail, too. Even the CEO himself uses AI, but maybe more for efficiency. He shared every time before I send him an email talking about his boss, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella, I hit the Copilot button to make sure that I sound Satya smart.
Ah, okay. So using it as an assistant, a polisher, but maybe not a total replacement for his own voice when talking to the big boss.
Right. So what this kind of tells us is, yeah, there's clearly a massive demand for AI skills in the job market. Even top executives are using AI tools, probably for efficiency, maybe to sound smarter, like Roslansky joked. But it's a big but. There's still a really strong human element, a need for authenticity, especially when it comes to your personal professional brand.
Makes sense. People are cautious, aren't they, when their reputation is directly on the line. It highlights this nuanced adoption curve where things like trust and perceived genuineness, they still really matter.
Exactly. It's not just about the tech working. It's about how it feels and how it's perceived by others.
Okay, so from policy and professional profiles, let's take our next deep dive. This one's into a realm you might not immediately think of with AI, but it's stirring up both excitement and apprehension. The world of typography. What happens when AI comes for our fonts?
Yeah, it sounds a bit niche, maybe, but it raises some fundamental questions. Monotype, which is a huge player in type design, they own over 250,000 fonts, including giants like Helvetica. They presented this vision. It's called reactive typography, and it was in their 2025 Revision Trends report.
Reactive typography, what does that even mean?
Well, imagine text, right, that could use emotional and psychological data to tailor itself specifically to you, the reader.
Whoa, okay, like how?
So the report suggests things like text coming into sharper focus as you look directly at it, maybe softening when your gaze drifts away, or maybe typefaces shifting based on the time of day or the ambient light, or even adapting to your personal reading speed.
Adapting to reading speed? That's wild.
Yeah, or emphasizing important bits of online text dynamically to keep you engaged.
Okay, that's potentially useful, potentially creepy.
Yeah, possibly both. The report also suggests AI will make type more accessible generally through intelligent agents and chatbots, allowing basically anyone to generate typography, even if they have zero formal training or design skills.
Right, the democratization aspect again.
Exactly. And this is all part of what the source calls an ongoing gold rush in the art and design world.
Yeah.
You see creatives exploring tools like Midjourney for AI images, Replit for coding, various GPTs for language. But there's also this adversarial pushback, a resistance to the idea that creativity itself is just some kind of bottleneck that needs to be optimized away by AI.
You know, this whole situation, it really echoes a moment in history, doesn't it? The reading mentioned the early 20th century, the Deutscher Werkbund debates.
Yes, where artists and designers were grappling with rapid industrialization, how it impacted art, typography. Very similar questions to what designers face with AI now. You know, what does creativity even mean when automation steps in?
Right, and some rejected mass production entirely, while others embraced it, which eventually led to things like the Bauhaus movement.
Precisely. And back then, much like today, there were these kind of vague blue sky questions about industrializing typography. Could type be text and sound via radio? Could there be a universal typeface for everyone?
And did those experiments lead anywhere major?
Often not really. The real advances were mostly in efficiency, making type production faster or cheaper. And monotype, in a way, seems to be reopening some of those ambitious, maybe even philosophical questions, but now with AI as the tool.
Charles Nix, he's the senior executive creative director at Monotype, one of the report's authors. He seems really excited by it all. Sees endless possibilities.
Yeah, he said, at either end of the parentheses of AI are human beings who are looking for novel solutions to problems to use their skills as designers.
Implying AI is a tool for humans, not a replacement.
That seems to be his view. He added, you don't get these opportunities many times in the course of one's life to see a radical shift in the way technology plays within not only your industry, but a lot of industries. He sees it as a massive opportunity.
But not everyone is quite so convinced about generative AI's immediate revolutionary impact, right? What about Zeynep Akay from Dalton Mag?
All right, Zeynep, okay, she's the creative director at Dalton Mag, another typeface design studio. She feels results from purely generative AI in type, well, they just aren't there yet.
Okay.
But she does admit the assistive potential is significant. Dalton Mag is actively exploring AI, but more for mitigating repetitive tasks.
Like what kind of tasks?
Things like building kern tables that's adjusting the spacing between specific letter pairs, which is super tedious, or writing OpenType features, which control advanced font behaviors, or even diagnosing font issues automatically.
Yeah.
Using AI to help the human designer, essentially.
So assistive, yes. Generative, maybe not so much yet. But Akay also voiced a deeper worry, didn't she?
Yeah, much deeper concern. She said, it's almost as if we are being gaslighted into believing our lives or our professions or our creative skills are ephemeral. That's a strong word. Ephemeral.
Meaning temporary, fleeting.
Exactly. She questions if these generative applications truly promise a better creative future. She seems to fear a future where all human intellectual undertaking is shed over time and handed over to AI, and what we gain in return isn't altogether clear.
That's pretty profound anxiety about where this all leads.
It is, and she drew this powerful analogy to the dot-com bubble back in the late 90s.
I remember that.
Right, where all these startups were incredibly overvalued, then crashed, because the internet, at that specific time, never connected to a practical consumer need, as she put it.
The hype outran the reality.
Precisely. And she suggests that current AI might be similarly overvalued, especially by executives who are maybe pushing automation too hard, trying to squeeze creativity out of creative professions just for efficiency's sake.
Interestingly, though, both Nix from Monotype and Akay from Dalton Mag, despite their different takes, they kind of agreed on one thing. Something about an AI crash.
Yeah, they both seem to think that a similar crash or correction around AI hype might actually be good for the field. It could push out some of the purely venture capitalist, hype-driven interests and let the real value emerge.
But Nix, the Monotype guy, he still pushes back on the idea that there's no practical need yet, right?
He does. He maintains that just because we don't immediately see the practical need doesn't mean it isn't there. He suggests the need might be, in his words, beyond the bounds of our current field of vision.
Like we can't even imagine the applications yet.
Kind of. He specifically mentioned areas like the limited typeface choices for non-Latin scripts, or other areas outside what he called the Western mainstream of design. He thinks maybe the periphery may end up driving the need state for AI and typography, solving problems we haven't even focused on yet.
That's an interesting thought. So despite all this potential disruption, are the basic business models changing? How we actually get fonts?
Doesn't seem like it, not yet anyway. Our sources indicate that the current models, licensing fonts from companies like Monotype or Dalton Mag, those are unlikely to change fundamentally in the near term.
So these generative AI apps might just get, folded into existing subscriptions?
That seems to be the expectation, just another tool in the toolbox you pay for.
Okay. So what have we really learned from looking at typography's encounter with AI?
I think what's clear is that while the efficiency gains from AI are pretty obvious, helping with those tedious tasks, Akay mentioned the bigger debate is much deeper. It's less about what AI can technically create and more about what it means for the value we place on human creative labor itself. That seems to be the fundamental philosophical challenge defining this gold rush, as one source called it.
And it's still so early.
Incredibly early. As Nix put it, trying to grasp it now is like trying to understand a four-dimensional shape. He said, what was defined as type in 1965 is radically different from what we defined as type in 2025. It just highlights how much things can change and how early we are in figuring this out.
But then you have Akay's reminder, which feels important too, that creativity is valuable because it isn't easy or fast.
Right. She said it's valuable rather because it is traditionally the result of work, consideration, and risk. Those human elements.
Work, consideration, and risk. Okay, so pulling this all together, What does this really mean for you, listening to this, as AI keeps evolving at this breakneck speed?
Well, I think from the complex dance we saw between federal and state regulation to those surprising adoption patterns in the workplace, like the LinkedIn example, and then these really profound questions facing creative fields like typography. Our deep dive today really shows that AI's impact is anything but simple, isn't it? It's this dynamic interplay of innovation, definitely, but also skepticism and just fundamental human adaptation.
Yeah, we're sort of primed to know things will change. But the sources really highlight how hard it is right now to see how much of our current ways of working or even our understanding of something like typography will actually preserve. It feels like a real tension between embracing all this new potential and still honoring the value of that human effort Kate talked about.
Exactly. And as we navigate this, well, pretty uncertain future, the sources seem to suggest that, okay, maybe we can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. AI is here.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean we have to be reckless right now. And maybe it raises an important question for you to consider. How do we, as individuals, and maybe as a whole society, make sure that while we're chasing efficiency and these exciting new frontiers with AI, we also continue to value and maybe even protect those very human elements, the work, the consideration, the risk-taking that have traditionally defined, our greatest innovations and our most meaningful creative achievements?